Hi there everyone, and welcome to RPG Horror Stories with DnD Doge. Today, we have a bit of a Warhammer themed video, as two of the longer stories involve Warhammer tabletop RPGs getting ruined by some of the players. But before we get into those, may I offer you a video of a kitty in exchange for a like? That was worth giving the video a like, right? And I thank you to those who did. And those who didn't, I see you. But with that said, let's get into these Warhammer horror stories. Double the Trouble. Two Trolls Ruined the Campaign by Being Perverts. By Reddit user National Surprise 353. Another story from me. So, for a long time, I was stuck as a forever DM, but I kinda enjoyed it. I'm a very creative man, able to make a lot of what is stuck inside my head. I created a Warhammer fantasy campaign set in a homebrew world. Basically, the premise of the campaign would be to have a large world with a lot of stories in it, with a ton of possibilities to start your own business. The group was very inconsistent, except for two players who were on each session. I will refer to them by the nicknames from my script. We have Geralt at home and Weed Addict. The problem started at the very beginning, where the characters arrived on the island via a jail ship, where they were going to be set free to start a new life as colonizers for the Empire. The mayor of the city came to welcome the new inhabitants and give them their papers. Very official situation, to say the least. The first thing to happen was that Geralt wanted to hug the mayor. I was shocked, but allowed it. When he did so, the mayor pushed him, showing that this is not how you greet a government official. I said that Geralt needs to roll because he was about to trip on the holes between the boards of the pier. He critically succeeded, and he narrated it as doing a bunch of backflips. It was back when I allowed players to have too much creative freedom without any sort of redacting action for me. Well, so far, it isn't too bad. Sure, Geralt seems to be a unique character, but it's nothing too strange. After a couple of hours of the session, the party stumbled upon a shrine of Shala, filled to the brim with healer female clerics. There is a reason why I put emphasis on their biological gender. I think we all know where this is going. They were dressed in typical nun attire. Once I described the shrine, the Weed Addict started to act up. I asked the player what is wrong with his character, except for the fact that he described his character as being high 24/7. He answered, "Weed Addict is attracted to all nuns and representatives of the cult of Shala, and guess what? They're both." I tried to explain that they have a vow of celibacy, and that his character attempting to hit on them would be judged as heresy, which, at worst, would leave him burning on a stake. But he didn't care. That's his character, and his character can be attracted to whatever he wants. Geralt player was hyping him up on the idea. I didn't know what to do. The session ended, and the players renamed my campaign to, quote, Sexy Island. Sadly, the original name is gone, since that name stuck with the group. This is a clear sign of the slow death of my campaign. Well, this is where OP should have talked to those players above table, and told them that he would appreciate it if they would try to take the game more seriously, and try to keep a more serious tone. A bunch of sessions later, the party ended up in a haunted house, because they were abducted by a Skaven, and one of the tunnels from which they escaped from led to said house. I planned a puzzle-filled haunted house full of traps and a boss fight at the end. Once the party made it to the second floor of the house, above the boss room, I started to describe what they hear as a female screaming below them. The boss fight was meant to be against a demon baby, which the party was going to assist in giving birth to. It was completely fine because I warned the entire group in advance that there was going to be some gruesome imagery, and if they feel like quitting because of it, it would be completely fine. Once the party heard the screams, the 2 problem players started screaming like monkeys in a zoo and hitting the floor with their weapons. "Woman, the Shella is in need. We need to save her." They could not break the floor, of course, because of it being made of a very thick layer of concrete. After a couple of hours of puzzle solving, they finally made it to the boss room. The atmosphere was very dark. The demon baby was in the air, floor filled with black ooze and green lights flickering all around, as from the child's mouth, a bunch of tentacles sprouted. "I attack him with my condom," said Weed Addict player. Wait, what? I replied, "Wait, you do what?" He then said, Okay, I attack with 2 condoms, dual wielding them." Ah, okay. That makes much more sense. I should have ended the session there, but I allowed that. It, of course, didn't do any damage, obviously, but left the baby with a permanent status effect that did basically nothing. I called it Disgust Effect. After the fight, the session ended. The worst thing is that Gerald player supported the Weed Addict player in everything he did. The campaign died because when I was trying to write any kind of fun, serious, and dark atmospheric script, I knew they would do something stupid and kill the vibe. Later, I learned that the goal of both players was to, quote, defeat the GM, and F me as much as they can. Don't be me. Be more assertive. Well, OP wrapped it up pretty much in that last sentence. Like I said earlier, if you're running a game that you want to be taken seriously and have a serious tone, but end up with players like this, you need to tell them to tone down the goofiness and to try to take it more seriously. Though, as it sounds, it wouldn't have really worked on these players, as they set out to basically sabotage OP's game from the get-go. But still, OP should have said no on multiple occasions, and if the players wouldn't listen, then they wouldn't need to be in that game. But speaking of Warhammer games, I actually have an update of a Warhammer 40k horror story that I covered in this video here a few months ago. So I'll leave a link in the description to that video in case you want to go check that out after this video. But with that said, let's get into it. The Sexorcist returned to the Dark Heresy game. Caused the GM to quit? By Reddit user Divskursks. A few months back, we had a player in our 40k Dark Heresy group who was fine until his character tried to essay a person possessed by a demon because he believed that would exorcise the demon. It doesn't work that way in Dark Heresy. Anyway, it went south as one may expect. His character died and he rage quit, and we didn't hear from him since. However, we never kicked him from the Discord because the whole situation concluded kinda, well, it didn't conclude. I guess nobody just figured to do it. Then, a few weeks ago, he suddenly showed up to a session like nothing happened. He whisked out his old character sheet, the one who died, and acted like nothing happened. The Game Master stopped him and said that his character is dead. He then said something along the lines of, "Well, you know, sometimes when you think someone is dead, they're not. I think we could go for a minor retcon." Wow, now that is a bit presumptuous, huh? Game Master refused, stating that the circumstances of his death were such that he's 100% irrevocably dead. There's no Darth Mauling out of this one. On top of that, the planet we were adventuring on when he died subsequently exploded. Our party did not cause this. At this point, I messaged the Game Master, who's a great guy and a great storyteller, but sometimes a bit averse of conflict, and I suggested he kicks him. The Game Master went awkward and said he's got really bad experiences with being closed out of social places, and he'd like not to do that if he can. Fair enough. His game and his rules, as far as I'm concerned. They debated for like 15 minutes, and finally, the problem player agreed to make a new character. His tech priest joined our existing party of a guardsman, me, Sororita, and a psyker. He stressed that this character is really paranoid. This was apparently his only actual personality trait. The plot essentially revolved around that we first arrived to this backwater colony to settle the people we evacuated from the planet that exploded in there. However, we very soon noticed there's a big chaos presence there, to the point that the colony is near renegade. We, the acolytes of Imperial Inquisition, were then tasked at investigating this chaos presence on behalf of our Inquisitor employer. With fake identities, we went on infiltrating the cult. This part goes on for like 3 sessions without incident. Ooh, that means there's going to be an incident. We found out the cult has managed to create a warp rift under one of the planet's mountains, and is slowly amassing legions of demons through it. Furthermore, the rift is growing, and once it reaches a critical size, it will implode and transform the planet into a demon world. This is a really bad thing for the sector we are in, so this is what we must prevent. Then comes the sort of finale of that planet's story arc. We need to shut down the thing before it makes this planet a demon world. For this end, there's a bunch of NPCs assaulting the complex. Sisters of Battle, Tempest Scions, and even some Space Marines. But our party, still undercover, needs to do the quintessential job of shutting down the anti-air defenses and void shields so that these forces can actually reach the site. For this end, me and the Psyker went to speak to the Chaos Local Command and their command center so that we can prevent them from raising an alarm when the tech priest, Sororita being with him, shuts down the defenses. However, at the tech room, where the autonomic defense controls are, the tech priest suddenly attacked the Sororita, citing the reason to be that his character is paranoid. What? If he was paranoid, why would he attack his only ally that's with him? That doesn't make any sense. Well, he did mention it before, but this was the first time it factors into the roleplay. He did get the jump on her and brought her down to critical thresholds. The Game Master did ask if both consented to PvP, and the Sororita player said something along the lines of, "Let him effing try." But her character was a combat monster, so she managed to almost kill him on her turn on retaliation, which scared the tech priest player, and he opted to run away. In other words, he effed around and found out. Meanwhile, me and the Psyker were forced to kill all 12 of the Chaos Leaders in the command room to prevent them from checking it out. We managed to do it very quietly, thanks to the Psyker's massed mind control spells. We realized something must be off, and went to check the tech room. The Chaos hasn't yet realized it's us who are messing things up, where the Sororita explained the situation. All 3 of us took turns in trying to disable defenses, failing miserably because none of us have any tech skills. We then tried to disable them manually, meaning to blow them up, but we failed at that too. Since we are 3 guys against an army, we then decided to steal a Valkyrie, something of a helicopter transport plane hybrid, to escape. During all of these attempts, the tech priest was trying to snipe at us from a cliff. Well, I don't think his character being, quote, paranoid excuses all this BS. I think he was just trying to get back at everyone for what happened to his previous character. That we managed to do, but as we were ascending away from there, an array of nukes hits the planet, and it exploded. This time, I do suppose it was our fault. The tech priest then went ballistic on the Game Master for killing him again with zero agency, literally shouting in pure rage for like 2 minutes until it cuts off mid-word. The Game Master apparently finally booted the guy. The Game Master then said, "Guys, I'm sorry," and logged off before anyone managed to respond anything. I tried to ask him if everything's okay, but he's not returning my messages for 3 days now. I don't know if the Game Master intends to come back since he left so abruptly and nuked the party for the closing scene, as I'm not sure if the rest of us survived or not. I know our Game Master is suffering from depression, so I think he's just aloof after how his long-planned story arc ended, and he may still come back at some point, but I don't know. He's never not responded before, so it might be that he just decided to ghost us. Well, that just sucks. I can understand the Game Master not wanting to block anyone from playing, but the way that that player acted after his previous character died, one could assume that he would try to do things to mess the game up for everyone else. And it does suck that that is exactly what happened. But to basically ghost the other players after the game ended is a bit drastic. Sure, it is somewhat the Game Master's fault by letting that player back in, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. I mean, it's a tabletop RPG. You can basically make anything happen as the Game Master. Heck, even just retconning that the session didn't happen, and continue on. Hopefully, OP eventually heard back from the Game Master after a bit of time, and they were able to continue playing, just without that player. But thus, that ends our trips into some Warhammer games. So let's finish off with 2 D&D horror stories. Players That Talk Too Much by Reddit user FastDad9014. So, I have a good group I'm dungeon mastering for, and the party has had enough sessions now that they're all getting comfortable with their characters and role-playing. I have one player who has a couple of times been a bit of a stage hog, if you will. He is playing a bard, so I suppose it makes sense, but he is really laying it on thick in conversations. A lot of what he has to say is funny. It just goes a little far. He has talked over a few players and continued on his mad rambles at the expense of others getting to talk. I would estimate he was 75% of the entire dialogue in our last session, with me included. He continues to, quote, persuade people long after his role has determined the outcome. I sent him a message after the session telling him that he needs to tone it down and leave a bit more space for others to talk. Everyone had a good time, except one of my players. She was frustrated that she couldn't get a word in edgewise, and when she would try and do anything, it was as if he was cock-blocking her to make sure things went the way he felt they should. The wizard had a familiar, and she went to grab it, and he jumped in front of her because he wanted to talk to it first. In retrospect, I feel like I should have told him no, and let her make her action. Any advice on how to address this during the game without it putting a damper on his or anyone's fun? Well, that certainly is an issue. It sounds like Bard may have a bit of main character syndrome, and is showing signs of a spotlight hog. But as far as what to do, OP answered their own question. They did the right thing by sending Bard a message, telling him to maybe tone it down a bit, and has realized that they should have done something during the game. Hopefully, Bard is mature enough to take the criticism and adjust his behavior a bit, so that the other players get a chance to have some time in the spotlight. And if it starts happening again, OP should say something during the game, and give the other players a chance to interact and roleplay. So I wish OP the best of luck with their game. But with that said, let's move on to the next post. I am angry at the DM by Reddit user Horror Assignment 313. The campaign started 1 year ago, and we play once per month. We are 6 players, and everyone including the DM, is in his 30s. This is our first campaign ever, and only the DM is experienced. That's why I'm asking for advice before confronting him or leaving. During this whole adventure, we were always misled by enemies. A fake mission. We got paid with fake coins. We almost died against a friendly sea navigator who turned out to be a pirate who was allied to the BBEG. We also got played by another unwilling player character. He is a warlock, and he didn't know that his patron was actually the BBEG. We got robbed by NPCs, lied to, and even betrayed. Our characters recently escaped from the BBEG thanks to an NPC's help, a very powerful wizard. We arrived in a small port city who fell prey to the BBEG's influence. Surrounded by zombies, blockaded by a strange huge ship, and raided by orcs. The only way forward, according to the DM, was to rescue some villagers from the orcs. This is where one of us, the paladin, met a pirate NPC, a captive from the orcs. Let's call him Jake. Jake is a halfling pirate, and we remembered that another pirate we fought before, who was allied with the BBEG, mentioned him, so we didn't want to ally with him. But the DM wanted us to ally with him. He told us out of character that we need to ally with him because he is actually the master of the huge ship which is responsible for the blockade. We are supposed to travel with him, and if we don't, we are going to be, quote, in huge trouble, since we have no other way to travel. Another player character seems to remember Jake, but this character has amnesia, and there are a lot of doubts that this character might be allied with the BBEG without knowing or remembering it. I tried to ask him if there were any other way. Can we travel through the coast? Nope. Can we build a small ship with the help of the villagers? Nope. Can we rally the orcs through deception? Nope. Can we cut our way through the zombies surrounding the city? Nope. Is there anything else we can do besides allying with Jake? Nope. The only possible way for us was to ally with a pirate that our characters did not trust. Then, he asked the paladin to make a blood pact with him. The paladin was a beginner who recently joined us. It was his first ever session. He also asked us to retrieve his magic amulet that we got from an orc, as he needed that amulet to survive. But before that, me and the warlock asked a lot of questions to Jake. The dungeon master got upset and told me he almost used a control spell on my character because we took too much time to give him back his amulet. Then, Jake asked us to help him do some ritual in an ancient room near the orc's base. Again, the DM does not allow us to refuse since he has made a blood pact with the paladin. I try to ask him what this ritual is about, but receive no answer. It turns out this ritual released some magical item that Jake took, and a lich, and an ancient dragon. They both flew to the port city and destroyed it, killing all the villagers. Then they flew to the north. The session ended with the DM telling the paladin that there will be huge consequences for his blood pact since it contradicts his vows as a paladin. The DM also told me he is considering killing off some of my character's family because they will probably meet the lich and the dragon. I also learned recently that Jake is a self-insert from the DM. I am extremely frustrated. I want to ask you guys, what do you think of this? I tried to have a discussion with the DM, but he responded that my concerns are wrong. According to him, I am too paranoid and hostile. He told me to wait for the progression of the story, that it will not be as railroaded in the future, but I don't trust him at this point. The other players didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything until this point because as a beginner, I genuinely thought that the DM knows what he is doing, since he is a veteran, but now I have serious doubts. Thank you for reading. Well, for a supposed veteran DM, he sure took all the players on one heck of a railroad. From having all those things happen, and the party's only option being to ally with that character that their characters don't trust due to all the possible connections to the BBEG, then to basically say no to any and all suggestions that OP came up with, and blatantly say that they have to go one way. Not to mention having a new player that is brand new to D&D, and basically forcing them to do something in-game that their character will get punished for without any of that player's input. Though I will say that at least the DM is self-aware enough to say that he knows it was railroady, but that it won't be so much in the future. Perhaps he just had to have all of these things happen in order to set up the story arc of the Lich and Dragon being released. But if that is the case, why not just have that happen on the sidelines, or even have it happen before the campaign even starts? Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a master of D&D or anything, but there has to be other ways of doing this without stringing the players along, or forcing one of the characters to do something like a blood pact. Though, what do you guys think on this one? Should OP stick it out and see if the players get more agency as the game progresses? Or take what has happened so far as a sign of things to come, and leave the game? I'm legit curious. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, especially if you like, comment, and subscribe. And may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.